If my own two college-age children are watching, turn it off and get back to work. Your job is to move out of my house. Please do that. And don't listen to your father again. Okay. Do you have any questions so far? How are we doing? It's my one major goal these days, get my kids out of my house. It's an unbelievable honor to be here, and I've had the pleasure of being able to sit at dinner with the Folgers tonight and heard about the pioneering work of your dad, and looking back at, I think it's fascinating to know how we got to where we are. And I learned that your dad was pushing the envelope for rigor and creativity, and in some ways I feel like I'm trying to push the envelope, and so I feel a connection to just the ongoing work that all educators, for whatever we can do to push the envelope. So off we go. I thought I would start with actually trying to take a poll from you. If you turn your cell phones on, right? You're probably often told to turn them off. But for those of you who are on the web and you are educators or students, I think the question would be nice if I could break it down, if I could know which is which. But I'd like to ask you a question. Who's currently working harder in classes? So current situation, classrooms that you know about, is the teacher working harder? If you have a cell phone, just to give you some instruction, the telephone number would be 37607 in your text messaging app. So for those of you who have a smartphone, if you have a text messaging app, it's 37607. This is like American Idol. Kind of works like that. For those of you who have voted, apparently more people vote on American Idol than for President of the United States. And I'm sure that has something to do with cell phones. Anyway, 37607. And then if you think the teacher works harder, you would type in 1224916, the number, not the text, and hit enter. And with any luck, things will show up. And we'll just see if that works. It depends on internet connections and pixie dust and all kinds of things. But I'm fascinated by ancient ideas in education, like Socrates, and going back in time, and the one-room schoolhouse, which might have represented rural Georgia at the time that your dad was dean, that schools were much smaller, and maybe the older kids taught the younger kids, and teachers had 6, 7 grades, taught every subject, and somehow we moved from that model of the teacher learning about the whole child over many, many years to a situation where we only teach first grade. It's a fascinating change from what used to be probably more true of rural Georgia than what is true today. And in many ways, maybe we want to go back in time and revisit some old models that we got rid of, like the one-room schoolhouse. I'm also fascinated by Socrates. I'm fascinated that this model we left behind, for most part, the role of a teacher in the Socratic method is not to give out any answers. It's only to ask the provocative question and to have students engage in debate as they try to make meaning together to acquire knowledge. And so what I want to do is do 2 things at once. I want to go back and revisit some old ideas that we've left behind and take a look at the internet and think about what would happen if we revisited some old ideas with some new ideas. Because what worries me as we move forward, we might be so interested in new technology that we're not looking back to revisit some of the very best ideas that we left behind. I know that's an unusual way to start a talk, but I was inspired, so I'm doing it. All right, and so we're not, I guess the pixie dust is not working. Ordinarily, you would be seeing this by now. Let's see if I hit a summary table. If this is, oh, you have been voting. Yay, you've been voting. Look at that. I'm so excited. Okay. I'm like a little kid. You know, when it works, I'm very excited. Otherwise, I don't even like technology, I should just tell you. Okay, so on balance, the majority of people think teachers work harder, currently. Teachers work harder than students, and that's fine. I would have guessed that. Let's see. Now, the next poll, I'm going to ask you one more question, see what you think. It's going to be the same phone number, and what I didn't explain last time is if you have a device on the web, a browser, you could go to polev.com/novelearn if you have a browser. And you could do the same thing. You just type in the number or click on it if you're on a browser, and now we'll have live. We'll see what's happening live. Yeah, it's kind of cool. Yeah, that's kind of cool. Yeah. But I'm not so interested in the technology as I am in your answers. So the pattern, I can tell statistically, we're just about done already. It's a very different answer in this room. The room just changed its mind. So the majority of people in the room said teachers currently work harder from the first poll. And from this one, it looks like overwhelmingly, this is remarkable, in fact, overwhelmingly, the room is voting that students should work harder than their teachers. So we're back to Socrates. We're back to the one-room schoolhouse, because in those two models, prior to inventing graded classrooms where teachers would give the answers, we did all that in the 1920s, we had these older models, both of them, by the way, the one-room schoolhouse and the Socratic method, where students worked harder. So I'm going with the room. I'm going with the room. I want to lay out, as much as possible, how do we design learning environments where students are working harder than their teachers? And I will suggest, I don't know, are any of you, how many of you are classroom teachers? Are there any in the room? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Oh, you're all up front. Look at that. That's amazing. It's amazing. And how many of you are college students? How many in the room are college students? Whoa. You showed up? Don't you have work to do? This is like amazing. Okay. All right. Extra credit. Don't say that. Don't. That's like when children used to come over to my house. I didn't know my mother paid them to play with me. That's not good. No, they came because they wanted to hear the talk. Okay. Extra credit. Okay. I'm not giving you any credit. All good. I want to tell you a story. I want to start off with a story. Earlier today, when I was setting up, I logged on to a website, and I clicked on a little tool on the website that shows me traffic coming to visit the website. And so I came in this room just after 4 o'clock this afternoon to set up. And when I logged on to this little tool on the website, these places were coming on. So we have the Netherlands, Russia, New Zealand, Bogota, some in Texas, Louisiana. And that fascinated me. That fascinated me because, in fact, let me show you, not just in that 1 hour, actually it was 45 minutes, roughly, but all these countries have visited this website, which I'm going to show you in a moment, in the last couple of months, all those countries. So what's on the website that would attract people from all over the world? What's on the website? The website itself is this is the website. That was the little cluster map. In fact, if I log on now, just to show you this little map, and I go down and tell you what's happening since 5:45, last hour. We have Kenya, Australia, Athens, and a bunch of places around the US. If it were 3 o'clock in the morning, it would be Mumbai, Moscow. The website itself is a website of content designed by 6th grade children in a math classroom in Los Angeles, California. And I've had the amazing pleasure of working with this teacher and many of his students over the years since he started this. And one of my joys as a technology guy is to show students, here I'll just give you a sense of this. This website is filled with tutorials designed by the students in the class to help the other students in the class. One-room schoolhouse. In the one-room schoolhouse, children were given responsibilities, not just for their own learning, but to help other children learn. The teacher could not teach all the different subjects at once without harnessing the community of learners to build a real community of learning, where students took responsibility to help one another. And in many ways, I'm sorry we lost that. I think that builds responsibility and work ethic. It's different than getting a grade for your work. You weren't graded for helping the others. It was just something you did, part of the school culture. So this girl, I'll just tell you, I know these kids, and this particular tutorial, I could click on it and show you a little bit. I will in a moment. Just want to show you, that's been viewed 79,000 times. There probably isn't a teacher in this room who's answered the same question 79,000 times. And you're not going to in your whole life, unless you have a website like that. She's answered that question for kids all over the world, too. That's different than answering it face to face. So it's not rocket science. I'll show you. I wish it was more special than what I'm about to show you. This is going to be a letdown, I'm afraid. But maybe I'll just play just a little bit, just to give you a sense of what's going on here.
Hi, I'm Bob, and I'm going to show you how to do prime factorization. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a factor tree. A factor tree is you take a number, such as the number 32, and you break it up into prime factors. So 32, we're going to break it up into the numbers 2 and 16. So we're going to try to get it down to all prime numbers. A prime number is like a number that's only divisible by 1.
Well, you get it, right? I told you, it's nothing special. If you're dying to know the answer, it's 2 to the 5th. She eventually gets there, 2 to the 5th. She does it twice. Maybe what I'll do is just play the very end for you. I'm just jumping ahead.
It's the same answer as we got for the other problem. So this is the prime factorization of the number 32. Well, thanks for listening. I'm Bob. Goodbye.
Her real name's not Bob. So I was in this classroom, and the teacher had never shown the students the traffic report. And I asked permission, may I do that? He said, sure. So I showed her all the countries that have used her content in a given moment. It's amazing. And she didn't believe it. She said, you're making that up. You put those in. I said, no, I didn't. This is the computer. It's tracking IP addresses from around the world. It knows. And finally, I convinced her it was true. And I could see her face change when she began to believe it. And I said, what are you thinking? And she said, all those countries? Really? I said, yes, all of them, every hour. And she said, if that's the case, I have to do another one right now. Like, she blurted it out. You mean a tutorial? She said, yes, I have to design another one right now. I have to leave this meeting. And I said, your teacher's not going to give you a grade You're not going to get any credit, no points. You just want to do one? She said, yes. I said, how come? She said, and she didn't mean to be arrogant. She said, the world needs me. The world needs me. Well, why not? I mean, why not, right? The world needs me. I think we should design schools where children believe the world needs them. I don't think grades are enough. I somehow don't think that the reward system we've developed is enough motivation for every student to do their best work. I think other things, frankly, are more important than grades. I'll just say it. All kinds of research on this. In fact, if any of you want to take a look at the, let's see, while I'm thinking about it, in YouTube, there's this amazing video on the damage assessment does to learners. Comes out of pretty clear research. Dan Pink, here, I'll just type it in for you. You can take a look at it. Drive, RSA. You take a look at this video by Dan Pink, who read the research on assessment. 12 million people have, almost 13 million people. So if you want to get another talk on what happens, I'll give you an example. For many students in the audience, I teach it. I'm a professor. You know what conversation I hate? My students come up to me and they say, what do we need to do to get an A? I hate that. I hate that. And I'll tell them this is what you need to do. And you know what? That's all they do. They will not go past, what do you need to do to get an A? There's a lot of research that shows the current assessment model that we thought we were building in the 1920s, actually an engineer did it, might turn out to be a huge negative, that we have to get rid of it as fast as possible because it's not creating the kind of work where the world needs me. It's creating an artificial external reward system that doesn't get you the best work. This is well documented. In fact, I think questions like this are more important than what technology should we buy. If we don't get the system design right, it won't matter what technology we put in the system. If the culture is not right and the processes are not right. So how many of you, by the way, have seen that video? I'm just curious. Oh, half a dozen. What do you think? Good video? Awesome. OK, rest of you, you heard it here. Awesome. All right, but I don't have time to show that. You can see that on your own. All good. I'm going back to my talk now. My talk. Let's see. I'm going to go back a couple steps, and then I'm going to get big picture. I'm going to shrink down to some practical skills, and then I'm going to try and frame out some really important questions, like what should the assessment system look like, that I think we better start asking very deeply, because I'm worried that the technology we're buying is freezing a culture in place that does not deserve to stay the same. And a lot of the use of technology that I see as I work with universities and schools around the world, I could call the $1,000 pencil plan. We're doing old work with new tools. We have the same assessment, same curriculum, same number of class hours, same job descriptions, same organizational structure. Nothing's really changed. It's my opinion. Nothing's really changed. We have all this technology, what we could do. So just to show you, if we go back to Google, right? This is where a lot of students in the room, I'm going to guess, have used Google to do homework, right? OK, which one of you have not? Raise your hand if you've not used. Who's not used? Nobody. Yeah, nobody. In fact, I was in a little elementary school. I asked kids, who's not used Google? Little 4th grade girl said, sir, that's impossible. If you have a question, you have to use Google. It was like, you have to. You have to. And I thought, OK, well, if you're in elementary school, you do. But so what I like doing is asking students, well, show me an assignment. I want to see how you use Google. And I'm going to tell you now, I'm just going to tell you now, we'll see how close I am to being right. Here's a test for me. If you ask students around the United States, do you know how to use Google, they almost start laughing at you, like in this room. And then you start showing them how to use Google, and the laughter can stop quickly. Yeah, I'll show you. Well, we'll see, right? I want to be wrong. This is one of those things where I do not want to be right. I absolutely want to be wrong. But the first time I ever asked a high school student, senior, said, you ever get an A using Google? You ever show me? And he said, yeah, by the way, a lot of kids can do that. They can show me assignments they've used. So the student got an A on his Iranian hostage crisis paper. And one of the things that the research shows is happening to learners is that they only look at the top screen of results. So there's a lot of college kids in the room. You tell me when I'm wrong. The other thing about a lot of the people in this room is they do not change search engines during a search. They start and end with the same search engine, even if you need a different search engine. Like there's one. This is like only using the dictionary, not knowing there's a thesaurus. You wouldn't do that. But so far, am I right? So far? Uh-oh, so far. And on top of that, in this example, we have 750,000. No one's going to look at 750,000. So one of the things that's absolutely essential is to challenge a learner to ask themselves what's missing. What is not there? Because what you see, Google wants you to see. This was not designed for education, in case you don't know. It was not designed. Educators did not design this. So what's missing? I could ask you what's missing. There's a large block of content that if you want to understand the Iranian hostage crisis is absolutely critical that you access, and it's missing. It's not on this list. Now, in my teaching, I teach at doctoral level. I teach leaders who have to manage change with technology. And two of my doctoral students are lieutenant colonels at West Point who are professors there. And they have to prepare Army officers, which is a serious job. And West Point was the very first university in the world to give a computer to every student in 1984-85 by an act of Congress. And the reason they did that is because they recognized then that the real revolution was getting the right information to the right people at the right time. So I'm going to try and change the topic. We're not going to talk about technology. We're going to talk about information. That the real revolution is information, not the device. The reason you have the device is to do something with information or talk to somebody. Two skills: global communication and critical thinking on the web. So, what's missing? The Iranian point of view. There's no Iranian point of view. Google's algorithm is geographic and it's biased. If you do a search in Georgia on the Iranian hostage crisis, you will not get any sources from Iran. It's not going to happen. So you have to know how to do that, right? You have to know how to do that. I ask a lot of students, how do you get Iranian sources? And a lot of students will type in Iranian sources. Just like that. Type in Iranian sources. Iranian sources. And they get the same exact things just about. CNN, Wikipedia. It's amazing. It's absolutely I even have students who say they did it. And I'll say, no, you didn't do it. There's no Iranian sources. There aren't any. So then we have to go back and we have to show some background of how the web works, right? We have to show some students that there's this concept called country codes, and we're on the internet. So if I want to prepare you to go out in the world, I got to show you that they got these 2 letters have been set aside for every country by the organizing body, and there we have it. There's all the 2-letter country codes. So Iran, just look it up, it's IR. Be careful, Iraq is IQ, and Iceland's IS. There's no S in Iceland. So don't just grab the first 2 letters. Don't do that. Be more careful than that. So in this one story I'm telling you, I showed the student IR, about to Google, and I said, now what? How are you going to do that? He didn't know what to do. And I said, well, look, Google has operators, words that have kind of like magic power that give you precision over your search. So cite is one of those operators, the word cite. Always with a colon, type in IR, and now I'm in Iran. Now I'm in Iran. That's Persian. I'm in Iran. And this student is looking at me, and he's not laughing anymore. He's beginning to get it, that maybe what he thought he knew, he didn't know. So he's looking at this, and I just to show him the point, China is CN, so you get China, Japan is JP, and so forth. It works. It's really nice that way. So then I asked him to finish the search. I said, all right, you're in Iran. What's the rest of the search? He types in Iranian hostage crisis. And I said, you're in Iran. Do you think the Iranians called it the Iranian hostage crisis? You're in Iran. You're in Iran. Really? And so he makes it up. He just makes it up. I said, you're not Iranian. How can you just make it up? What do you mean? You're guessing? You're going to guess what the Iranians called it? Good luck with that. I mean, seriously? So I had to teach him how to use Wikipedia, right? Wikipedia is one of those places that people from all over the world can contribute. So Wikipedia, ironically, is a great place to go to learn how to design your search. You don't just go off and design your search. You think about it. I think we've got to teach people to think first. You know, it's like fire, aim, ready, it's kind of thing. And anyway, the Iranians called it Conquest of the American Spy Den. How many of you guessed that? You guessed that? Nobody guessed that. All right. So one of the things I've learned, West Point pushes you. I tell you, you get lieutenant colonels lined up, they push you. It's better to be precise than just make stuff up. That's one of the big lessons of life. You want to be careful, don't make stuff up. Anyway, so we go get that Conquest American Spy Den thing and go back to Google and get rid of all that. That's no good. Type in cite : IR and throw that in, and now we have some interesting content. Now we're getting there. We're not there yet, but we're getting there. So at that point, it's important to teach college kids and others to look for patterns of web address content that'll help you further refine your search. Does anybody know what that means? AC.ir. AC.ir. In the United States, a university is an EDU. But outside this country, academic is abbreviated to AC and the 2-letter country code. So when you see content like that, that's higher education in Iran. You look for that, right? Yeah. And then what you do is you take that cite : thing I was doing before, and now you type in ac.ir, and off you go. Now you have higher ed. Now we're down to 300 from whatever it was, hundreds of thousands. But that 300, you're not going to see that ever if you type in Iranian hostage crisis. Never going to see it. Now, if you're going to be an Army officer, you know you need this. You know that you cannot make a good decision unless you get multiple points of view of where you happen to be making that decision. Now, I know many of you are not going to be Army officers, and I understand that. But I think we should educate you as if whatever you want to become, you are really, really good at getting high-quality information in whatever you do. I think we should teach everybody very, very high-quality information. So I start with that because I'm just going to tell you, I've only met one high school student in the United States who knows how to use Google, and that's because he ran a web design company. He didn't learn it in school. This is not on any state test. We're not educating really for the internet, even though it's the dominant media of society. We're still teaching as if paper is the dominant media of society. And I worry about that. I hope I'm wrong. I hope everybody in this room knows what I just did and more. It was interesting because I was at a university in England and some professor of Shakespeare said, that doesn't apply to me. I teach Shakespeare. That hasn't changed in 400 years. And I said, oh yeah, watch this. File type, right? Another operator, file type. PPT. Site:/ac.uk. That's all file PowerPoints from British universities. You can't say PowerPoints from British universities. That's how Google reads. Google doesn't read like a human being. Right, of course. And then Romeo and Juliet. So I have 55 PowerPoints from British universities and Romeo and Juliet. If I type in, not nsite, sorry, site, ac.uk. Now I got 99 if you spell it right. And then if I type in EDU, American Universities, PowerPoints, I got close to 600 PowerPoints, Romeo and Juliet. And then if I want to get some Australian PowerPoints and Romeo and Juliet, and from Ireland and from Singapore, I can do that. So the world, I can quickly get you 1,000 PowerPoints on Romeo and Juliet. I don't think the world needs one more. I really don't. I just don't. Is my attitude okay? Is it? I think we could give students studying Shakespeare PowerPoints from around the world. Not a professor giving one PowerPoint. Not that. Let's give them 6 PowerPoints from around the world and have them work in teams, Socratic, one-room schoolhouse, where the students have to build their own PowerPoint during class rather than watch one. While they're working together, looking at 6, they have to select slides to create a 7th PowerPoint on the different cultural interpretations of Romeo and Juliet from around the world. To me, that is more depth, more critical thinking. I think they'll remember it longer, be more actively engaged than taking great notes from one professor like me giving a lecture on Romeo and Juliet. So it's not just that you have the technology and that you have access to the information, it's the design of the work. I think what we can do is actually change the design of our assignments to make them much more engaging. How many of the college kids in the room have used Wolfram Alpha? How many of you have used Wolfram Alpha? That'd be 3 of you? Out of 100? 4? 4 of you? Here, let me show you. This is going to be the best thing you... This is better than the extra credit you're going to get for this assignment. Wolfram Alpha. Wolfram Alpha, just to show you, is a knowledge engine. This is way past Google. This is beyond. Google can't dream of doing the things Wolfram Alpha can do. So Wolfram Alpha, as examples, these are just examples. Mathematics works, linguistics, money, finance, chemistry, physics, food and nutrition. I'll do some from that maybe. Astronomy, engineering, on and on. So just to give you a sense, if any of you are taking any math, you're taking College of Ed, don't make any jokes about that. If you're taking calculus, here I'll just show you. For those of you who are preparing to be math teachers, you must know about this. You must know. Except I think I'm off the web right now, which is not so good. Here, let me type something in instead. 6x, you know the routine, right? 6x squared plus 2. I'll make this bigger for you in a second. Solve. Go. And oh, it's just not behaving itself. But what it normally does, here, let's see, did my internet go out? I have to, yeah, not happy. Are any of you on Wolfram Alpha? I need your computers. Because what it does is it will solve any math problem in the entire curriculum, show you the answer to the graph, and teach you how to solve it. Any problem, all the way through. Woohoo! Woohoo! Now, all right, hey, come back. I got to, in all seriousness, I got to either change my internet access. I need to, let's see if I can get a different browser. No, it's gone. It's over. I'm off the web, which is a shame. Let me turn off the web altogether and turn it back on and see if I can just reboot. You know how? Did I mention I hate technology? I think I did. Well, this is coming on. Maybe. No, not so lucky. Yeah, bring me another machine. I don't know what's going on. Wolfram Alpha, Chrome, click, maybe, just try wolframalpha.com. See if that goes. Unable to connect. Yeah, my machine died all of a sudden. You got something? You're on?
I'm on.
Ah, fantastic. Here, boom. I love it.
Well, I'm not going to be able to take notes.
No, that's okay. I'll take over. I'll take over. Oops. So we just need magic, presto, whammo. Good. All right, so 6x, just to show you, 6x squared plus 2 equals 8. Got to type in the word solve because otherwise it takes the derivative or the integral or something else. And you hit go. And at that moment, it doesn't work either. I think we all went out at once. Oh no, it's working. So, all good, 6x squared. There's the parabola, there's the answer. And over here, if you've never used, oh, I just have to change your settings. Hang on. I'll fix it later when I'll put it back. VoiceOver, zoom on. You need to zoom on to present. Okay, now I can zoom in. So it has a step-by-step solution button. If I logged into my account, it would show me step by step how to solve that equation. No. Okay, but let me tell you, I was in a very high-performing school, and school sent me all these AP Calculus kids. And we had a little meeting, for breakfast before I talked to the teachers because I wanted to find out what's going on with technology. And I've learned, kids know. Want to know what's going on in school? Talk to the kids. And they'll tell you what's going on in school. So none of them had seen Wolfram Alpha. Do you want to see angry kids? Go a week after the AP calculus exam in May. Go in May, and then show them Wolfram Alpha, and tell them that this little tool would have allowed them to take a look at any of the calculus problems in the AP exam, any of them, all of them, with immediate feedback. They could change the variables, the exponents, test themselves. And a kid's looking at me, and a kid says, well, first he says, why weren't you here in September? But past that, the kid says, every problem in AP Calculus? I said, AP Calculus, AP Physics, AP Chemistry. It'll balance any chemical equation, solve for any known physics variable. This thing goes on and on, what this thing can do. It'll solve word problems. For those of you who want to be elementary teachers, it's the weakest link in the entire data set of K-12 testing. The #1 weakest area in the United States is word problems in 4th grade. I'll just tell you. Yeah. Yes, it is yes. Yes, it's yes. Okay, we'll get to that in a second. And so, kid says to me, I've been sitting in a math teacher's classroom where at a smart board, and I've been taking notes, going home to do homework. I don't get my homework back till the next day. The teacher goes on to the next unit. I don't know if I'm right or wrong on the homework I did yesterday, and I'm behind all year. And I could have gotten all the answers with instruction at my fingertips when I needed it. Oh, is this kid not happy? Not happy. And it turns out in that particular school, one kid went on Facebook and put this on Facebook. And that means all the other kids found out in the whole school. So kids were walking into math teachers' classrooms asking to use Wolfram Alpha. The math department had made a decision purposely not to teach any of the students Wolfram Alpha. Why? Loss of control. I'll tell you why. Loss of control. If all of a sudden, in fact, I was called into a meeting, I'll tell you, at the end of the day, they called me into a meeting, the math department, and they said, what right do you have to come to this school and give our students the biggest cheating tool ever invented in mathematics? And we called some kids in and had a meeting with some kids. And this first kid said, yeah, I've copied chemistry, physics, and math. He was so happy. And I was not so happy. Then I said to this kid, well, how is this any different than before? He said, oh, it's way different. Now I know I'm copying the right answers. And I've lost the screen too, but that's okay. Maybe that will come back. I need somebody in the back to turn on, your computer. That's what it is. I can make that work. Eventually. Okay. So here's my hypothesis, right? I think a lot of what we give our students in schools today, you can look up the answer on the web. You got to tell me, what can't you do? Given what I know about research tools on the internet, I think I can probably get 95% done. So I think the big work in front of us is not really learning technology. I think the big work is designing assignments where you can't just look it up on the web. I think we should redesign the work to match the power of the web. So I want to take a shot at that. I think that's a really important question. Should we give students work that was invented before the web, because now you can just look up the answers. Yeah, really, exactly. Or should we redesign the work to meet more demanding, more creative, more innovative, more critical thinking than we could ever dream possible? That's a question I think is worth asking. So here we go. Give you my best shot at that. I have 8 minutes left. I better go fast. All right. On my website at November Learning, this is not, all right, we'll get there. November Learning, I got some articles written about this that you could read later, give you some extra time. Go to resources on my website, at the top, resources. And when you get there, down here, we've got articles. And a whole bunch of articles I've written. That one's on how to use the internet, teaching Zach to think. And this one's on Twitter. I think Twitter is the antidote to Wolfram Alpha. No, yeah, well, you decide. Look, I'll show you. So this math teacher, and this could be any teacher in any subject, doesn't matter. I'm just picking on math at the moment. She beams out that photograph of Rangers Field and lives in Dallas. Kids had never gotten a photograph before. And she says, where's the perfect bunt? So that's the same answer for every kid. Where's the perfect bunt? She predicted one student would answer because no points, no credit, nothing. Just an image pops up on your cell phone. Where's the perfect bunt? Every kid. She couldn't believe it. Every kid. Phone doesn't stop ringing. She's sitting at Rangers Field. Her husband's bothered by it. So she goes back. A couple of days later, they got season tickets. We're going to say her husband's drinking a Coke, which it's not. But now, here's a West Point trick. Here's a trick from West Point. Instead of saying solve for volume, you just change one word and you say involve. That is so different. Watch. I'll show you the result. You see, when you say solve, we know the answer. When we say solve, we're not letting the learner design their own problem. We're not tapping creativity or innovation or really much, or even critical thinking. Because we're just asking you to figure out that that's a cone and you have to chop it off and apply the theorems and get a number. That just like a recipe is what that is. So the first kid tweets back, puts in a radius and a height, right? Vertical, puts in 8 inches and 2 inches for the radius. And then over there, he invents an ice cube that's 1.5 millimeters cubed. And the kid says, the husband's got an inch left at the top. Will it overflow if you add the 3 ice cubes? There's no way a geometry teacher would ever give that problem. Wouldn't happen. It's too complicated. You need to know some physics. You need to be creative about designing the problem. It's not going to happen. Never happened to her. She was so stunned at the creativity and the inventiveness of her students by changing the word solve to involve that 12 years of teaching went out the window. I think we've been underestimating a lot of kids for a long time. A long time. And yay, you're the best audience, by the way. You are the absolute best audience. So I got to wrap things up, but maybe I'll wrap things up this way. One of the most fascinating ideas that's rattling my brain these days that connects to all of this is something called the curse of knowledge, which is coming out of Harvard. There's a guy there named Steven Pinker who's a cognitive scientist. And they've discovered all this stuff is Harvard, because I did the search for it, right? Site colon, Harvard. And what they've learned is Harvard professors know too much. I bet professors here know too much. It's not limited to Harvard. The issue is that to really understand a learner means you should have just learned it yourself. The people who've just learned and struggled have the empathy for understanding what it's like to learn. And the experts, where it comes easy, they know too much to design the kinds of problems, to build the scaffolding to their knowledge. It's a weird idea. But I've bought in. I got to tell you, I've bought in. If I had the time tonight, I would show you another YouTube video. This one is from Harvard. It's a physics class called AP 50 by Eric Mazur, who's a dear friend and the Dean of Applied Physics at Harvard, AP 50. And maybe I'll conclude with this. Eric knows Steven Pinker well and decided to, oh, sound. Let's see. What do I do with that cable? Oh, there it is. I got it. Sound. Maybe. Can we do sound? No. I'll narrate. I know what's going on. Oh. Okay. We're in. So maybe just a minute I have.
When I designed AP50, my main goal was to create a course where students would take ownership of their learning.
All right, so this matches up with the poll. What Mazur did is he realized that his own knowledge might have been the single biggest barrier to his students learning physics. Just for a moment, I know this is weird, just for a moment. I mean, this guy, I used to watch him teach physics. He can walk on a stage and almost do a magic show. Everybody's captivated. He's amazing what he can demonstrate in physics. Now, in this video, you will never see Eric Mazur. Not there. Socrates. Back to Socrates.
In other words, they don't learn physics because we want them to learn physics, or we tell them to learn physics. No. They learn physics because they want it.
Okay, in the interest of time, you could type in YouTube AP50 and you could watch the video. Let me just tell you the highlights. Highlight is all of his content is on the internet, podcasts, videos. You don't need to come to class to get his content. That's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, with a rewind button. Right? You hit rewind if you want to see it over again. So you don't need to come for knowledge of a professor. What you need to come for is to apply the knowledge. So we're going from transfer knowledge to the application of knowledge. Another orbit out from transfer. Transfer is on the web. But he needs to know if students watch the videos and listen to the podcasts and play with the models and, accountability. Got to know. So students walk in and it gives them 10 problems by themselves to work on. You can see this about halfway through. And maybe he's going to explain some right about here.
Whenever we have such an activity, students come into class and they receive a certain amount of time, say 40 minutes, to work a number of problems on their own. Their goal is to do as well as they can on it because it's 50% of their.
Very traditional. You recognize this, called a test. Everybody takes their own, right? No collaborating, right? Then the most interesting thing happens. Breaks all the rules coming up now. Then the fun starts.
But after that, the classroom environment changes completely because students take that same set of problems, that assessment, again, but as a team.
So he gives the same test, exact same test, twice, immediately. And he puts kids in groups that he carefully designs the groups. We can talk about that later. But they're in groups. and they have to argue what's the question to number one, and they don't all agree. That's assessment for learning. The first round, there's no learning. In a traditional test, I will argue there's very little learning. But in this round, there's a tremendous amount of learning. There's argument, there's passion. It's fast. I've watched it. It's amazing. Then, after the second round, the kids are told the answers. And each table has to design a problem, an application problem. And their problem goes to another table, and they get a problem from another table. The problems move around, table to table. What do you think? Will college kids design easier or more difficult problems than the professor? That's the question. They're more difficult. And the motivation of other kids to solve a problem given to them by other kids, is it less motivating or more motivating than if a professor? It's more. So you get this incredible bump up in the quality of the questions and the motivation of the students. And the teacher could be reading the newspaper. But he's not. He's not reading the paper. What's really interesting is I think teachers have to be the best learners in their classroom. Teachers have to be the best learners. And what they have to learn is how students learn. Their job is to learn how students learn. So while all this is going on, the debate and the students designing the questions, Mazur is walking around learning insight. He's getting insight into how all his students learn. I don't think when I taught, I learned so much about my students' learning. I was so busy transferring knowledge. So, another really important question. How do we design learning environments where teachers can learn as much as possible about their students? That's the added value of a teacher in the age of the internet, not their knowledge. I can get the knowledge off the web. What I cannot get off the web is a thoughtful, creative educator who understands how I learn and how I interact with other students so that that educator can personalize instruction for me. So we're going to shift the value of our educators from the body of knowledge, of scholarship, which is still important, but not sufficient. It's only become sufficient in the current opportunity is when educators are getting students to apply knowledge and at the same time making thinking visible so we can personalize instruction. I think it's a blast time to be alive. Huge fun. But it's not about technology. It's about asking some very fundamental questions about the design of learning, and I'm worried that as a nation we're not having that conversation yet. So thanks for hanging with me all this time. All good. Yay.
Thank you. Fantastic.
Yay. Yay. Yay and yay. All good.
Students, I want you to know that the faculty members who selected Alan November to come tonight, we did a little, we had a committee. We like to do that in higher ed. And we asked faculty members to submit names. And we were a little bit modern, maybe not, you know, cutting edge. But instead of just looking at their bios and how well they have done and all the wonderful things, we watched them on YouTube. And we had 35 nominees, and we were all really taken with Alan November. And the reason is that we thought he could challenge you to go out and think differently. You know, you're going to go out in schools that are just eaten up with testing. I think those kids can pass the test. I really think they could probably pass it better than many of the classrooms where they're just being drilled and hating to be there and putting their heads down all day. So if you can take a little something from this and go out to schools and make a difference and just say, I want to try some different things, most school leaders are going to let you do it. The students will love you, and we're going to make a real change. And you're the generation to do it, because you know how to do all this stuff without it like going down and you know, having trouble. Alan has also agreed to stay. He's going to hang out down here. If any of you'd like to just ask some questions, he'd be happy to do that. Would that be best, or do you want to take a few questions from the audience? We have a couple mics. Would you like to do that? Let's take a couple questions from the audience, and then if some of you'd like to hang out, we can do that. Any quick questions? All right. Yay, right here.
Yeah, thank you. In my checkered career, I spent 10 years doing what they call faculty development, that is, working with professors to think new ways about teaching. But one of the things that often entered into the conversation that I was reminded of in your presentation is we start talking about interesting new ideas like that, and a professor would always say, but how am I going to cover the material? How does the cover the material question figure into what you talked about tonight?
Yeah, maybe I
Sure, come on up.
Still working?
Yeah.
The material. If all the material is online, see, you didn't have the internet, probably. I'm guessing. So. Just a guess. And yeah, I still want to, I need the guy back there to turn that back on, if we can get the thing back on. So the responsibility of the learner is to cover the material. So I'll just tell you, you know, like, here, my own son, because I'm paying the bill, is taking a course right now called CS50. CS50. And CS50 is Introduction to Computer Science at Harvard. I took the same course, very difficult course. The curriculum, you don't have enough time on the first day. You're behind. You cannot cover the curriculum. There's so much here to cover. It's unbelievable. 5 different languages you have to cover in this course. Then you have to apply them, and you have to know which one to apply for which problem. It's an unbelievable course. As difficult as they come, they say. Also the most popular course at Harvard. So the content, all the lectures are videotaped, and my son will sit there and replay and replay and replay. So when he goes to class, he's already seen what would have been the lecture that day. He's already seen it. And he goes with questions. So his ability, because the content is all moved to the web, allows him to come to class with questions for application. The professor does not have to cover the curriculum. That's the responsibility of the student. It's a shift of control. I know that sounds weird, but I'm showing it to you. Just logged on. The whole course is right there, everything.
Yeah, use that teachable.
Yeah, so you're talking about being the responsibility of the student, but I know a lot of my classmates here who are early childhood education.
Yes.
And with the county we're in here, we have a lot of students who are below the poverty line and
Yes.
have access to that technology.
Yes.
So how would you put the learning on them when most of the stuff in the classroom is now technology-based, but they don't have that at home?
Yeah, the equity question is a big one. Well, at some point, society has to recognize that, like giving kids textbooks, we have to give every learner access. So we did that with books. And by the way, At this point, there's no question in my mind that textbooks are a lot more expensive than giving every kid the internet. So we've just crossed that line. For a long time, the internet was expensive, and the price came down, and the cost of books is going up, not down, and we just crossed that line where this is internet, that's books, right? As college kids, you know how much a book costs. It's insane. And so the good news is if we shifted, I have any number of school clients who can justify buying every family access to the internet because they're going to not buy any more textbooks. They actually save money. So the irony of what you're saying is we're going to save money, but even if we did that, it's not sufficient because parents don't know what to do with the internet. Now, so if you're in early childhood, I'll show you. First grade, show you first grade. Google childhood, first grade. I have a friend teaches first grade, Kathy Cassidy, Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. This is her blog, Kathy Cassidy, Moose Jaw. These kids are poor. This is Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. This is not Toronto. I don't know what the equivalent would be here. I don't know. So every kid, they're teaching the children how to tweet in first grade. Say my R words. Well, that's not even spelled right. But you know to allow that as an early childhood educator, right? Okay, all good. So spell my R words. Doesn't even look like interesting artwork to me, but to a kid it is, right? To a kid it is. So, and the parents get this. So this is going out all the time. Kids are tweeting. Oh, you want to see the cluster map? Wait, hey, watch this cluster map. This is a first grade cluster map. Look at that. That's since 7:45 tonight. Last 30 minutes. That's in 30 minutes at night. You should see this during the day. So this classroom is globally connected. These children write books with kids around the world. They create videos. They do artwork collaboratively with children in many continents. They also do an amazing thing with parents receiving videos and photographs every day from this classroom. Every day. And if I can show that to you, we don't build enough support for poor families. We just make an assumption that we're going to teach their children in our schools, which is a good thing. I understand why we're doing that. But what we really have to do, as you've pointed out, is we have to build capacity in every family to be a center of learning. Every family, even if it looks like they don't want to. So what I've learned, here, I'll show you another one, if I may, one more. I have a friend who teaches in an all-Hispanic immigrant community in West Hartford, Connecticut, live from room 5. This would be Kathy Ann Grabowski. Ann Grabowski. You'll see. Whoop, go away. I don't want to do that now. So she tweets out, many times a day. She tweets out, and she shows images, and we decorated, we used bookmarks. They're beautiful. They're making a project with the bracelet. Now, this format, I really, really like. They ask me, you have to know that their parents don't speak English. They didn't come from the US, they came from Spanish-speaking countries. So the parents see the photograph, but they can't read the words. So the little girl comes home, and the mother says, "What does it say?" in Spanish. And the little girl in Spanish says, ask me. And then she says the rest. So the parent asks her. If you did that 10 times a day to low socioeconomic parents, you give them photographs and videos and ask me, and you create this opportunity of a conversation in the home about learning every day, that's what we should do. Right away, immediately. And a lot more, but at least that one. Oh, are we done? Yeah?
We have one more question, and then anybody who wants to hang around can hang around for a few minutes. You mentioned a student who approached you and asked, what do I have to do to get an A?
Yeah.
To me, that is a student with ambivalence. Do you believe that
Well, okay.
Do you believe that if we change the way we teach and value learning,
Yes.
we'll be able to take the minimalist student and make them become the overachiever student or just an average student?
Well, I can't speak to every student, but what I've learned in the research is the research says that if you grade rote learning, where we know the answer, that's okay. But if we grade creative learning, like artwork and music and writing and the application of physics, the creative work, then you shut that down. And by the way, I've had top students say, what do I need to do to get an A? I think it's not their fault. We inculcated within them that behavior. They weren't born that way. I'm convinced they weren't born that way. So I can tell you at Harvard, watching Eric Mazur teach, I'll give you an example. When the kids are designing their own questions, first of all, we should take advantage of the natural social behavior that people who are teenagers and preteens and post-teens, they're social. They want to learn, most people want to learn together, not my test, my work, but together. So there's a couple things we have to leverage here. So I'll just tell you, when I asked Eric one day, can you give me a story of the kind of problem that you would never design as a world-class physicist that your students came up with? He said, yeah, one group just a few weeks ago did the complete mathematical modeling of a launch vehicle to Mars. You don't do that in Introduction to Physics. It's not possible. So I think if we build community, see, in the what do I need to do to get an A, everybody is out for their own grade. It's really, what do I need to do to get an A, because everyone can't get an A, and I want to get to the top. So if we get rid of that, the irony is we'll get better work by abolishing that every student is out for their own grade. So I love the Mazur work because he's figured out that if you move the incentive to quality to a team, you get much better work than if it's incumbent on the individual for their own grade. And you get a lot of kids doing much better. Not everyone, I can't promise everyone, but huge numbers.
Thank you all again for